maneco64 here, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Billy has joined us today for a live stream, just a relaxed, informal Q&A. I guess I'm going to be waiting a little bit here. We have no viewers so far. Hopefully people will join in soon. Okay, here we go. Anonymous is here. Hi, Anonymous. Great, you're the first one. Parlando, hi, Parlando. Mike L. and Sanderson. Yeah, it's gotten a bit cooler the last few days here in England, in the southeast of England. We've had a bit of rain and it's been quite windy, but the temperature has dropped a little, so it's a bit more comfortable right now. We're not used to the heat here. So people are joining in right now. We've got Darrow. Hi, Darrow. James Mitchell from Oklahoma City. Hey, nice to see you, James. Silver Granny. Frank Rem. So yeah, I've just I'll take any questions that I can answer from you guys. Yeah, pretty relaxed. Billy's here today. Christopher Hensworth. Good day, Mario. Hi, Christopher. Lulu0462. Hurry Crane Annie. Hi, Hurry Crane. I like that mnemonic you have. Mike L., can you talk about setting up a basic investment strategy for a 40-something? Yeah, I guess, I'm 53. So what would I say for 40-something? I mean, it depends, of course, on your circumstances. But one thing I would say, if you do have a mortgage, try to keep paying that off as much as possible and get out of debt as much as you can. And that's what I did in my 40s. Try to buy, accumulate gold and silver as usual. Maybe look into the stock market as well if you want. Maybe at some high dividend blue chip stocks. And make sure that you do it, tax free. Here in the UK, we have something called an ISA, and they're tax free. So wherever you are, that's what I would look to do. And the other thing that people never talk about is have a budget of how much you spend a month. And try to stay within that budget and try to sometimes not spend as much as your budget and save, actually. So that's what I would say for a 40-something. Hope that helps. Anonymous, yeah, get those Mary Poppins umbrellas ready. I played golf this evening at 4 o'clock. I usually play in the morning. I played a competition, but we were able to tee off at 4, and it was a bit wet and windy, but it was all right. It was cool, and there weren't many people on the course because we played quite late. Good evening, Rick W. Al Lopez. Yeah, you haven't missed much, Al. I'm just doing a Q&A. I've answered one question about if you're 40-something, how to save. Clever Coin, what do you think about shorting the major indices? Well, there's two ways to short the stock market. One is to just hold cash, right? Or gold and silver, because if the price goes down, you can buy, more stock for less, right? The other way is to buy the ETFs. So, or if you have an options account, buy puts, out of the money puts. Of course, puts, you're going to pay the premium, and if the market doesn't move, you're going to lose your premium, but it's not as risky. I don't recommend going short, naked short, i.e. selling calls. So that's what I would do. Hey, the Maestro 8, nice to see you here too. Frank Rem, The historically high gold and silver ratio is often used to argue that the silver price is too low, but could the same argument be made that gold is too high? Maybe, but the thing is, if gold goes down further, silver will go down further, so it doesn't really make sense that it's much higher than 80. So I think it's a signal, though, that the metals are, at a bottom. And I've seen a lot of articles in the last few days about how massively short the specs are in gold. They're the most short they've been in a long time. And that's usually, I think the last time they were as short as now was in the end of 2015 when gold bottomed at 1,045. Am I saying gold is going to go up? No, but it's very near a bottom. James Mitchell, thanks for the super chat donation. I hope you like the answer to your question. Daryl Lowry, would you speak to asset inflation caused by low interest rates? Well, basically, low interest rates encourage investors and speculators to kind of go along the risk curve in order to try to get more return. So they buy riskier assets that are usually undervalued against blue chip assets. That leads to higher prices. The other thing about interest rates when they're really low or dropping is that the discount rate for the future value of assets is lower, so the future value becomes higher. That's how it's explained. And also, it leads to higher bond prices or higher assets. It also leads to people borrowing more money and buying, let's say, houses or real estate. That's why it leads to higher asset prices. Hope that helps. Anonymous, would you ever buy options on expiration dates? Definitely. I used to trade options for myself when I started out at GNI, which was one of the biggest brokers in London. We could have our options accounts. And if you felt the market was really volatile, yeah, I did a lot of that because it's fairly cheap. And if the market moved, you got a lot of theta. Not theta, but beta, so yeah, definitely. But you need to be following that underlying market very closely. One of the best options trade I did was buying puts on the German government bond future. And I think it only had like a week to go. But I knew there was an important number coming out. That was back in 1994. And that number was horrible for the German bond market. And the bonds just collapsed. And the put I had was way out of the money as well, but it got very close to that, and I got out. I hadn't put much money. I bought like 200 pounds worth, but I was able to close the position, and I made like 1,500 pounds. And then the option expired in a couple of days. So yeah, definitely a good way to speculate. But you need to be following that market really closely. I hope that helps. YK, why do we spend so much energy to take gold out of the ground and spend even more to keep it safe in the ground safe? Well, yeah, I mean, I know Warren Buffett has talked about that, about gold, that we spend so much energy taking out of the ground. I think it's just because it's in the human DNA, it's precious, and it's always valued. It's always valued. It keeps its purchasing power against everything else. For some reason, humans value gold. And I can't really explain that. Chris Varga, hello, Mario. Hope you are well. Would you recommend buying gold from a bullion dealer or online? What are your advantages or disadvantages of both? Well, the thing about buying gold, from anyone, you need to know whether the person or the dealer is reputable. It doesn't matter if that dealer is online or if you go there physically. I've done both. I know some dealers that I can go to in London, but I also know one online that's not in London. It just depends sometimes on if what price they have. Some dealers might have a better price at that time. So I would say that trusting that dealer, doesn't matter if he's a physical dealership or an online dealership. Mario, do you think that yields on bonds will keep going up? Well, we're very near 3%, and we've had a bit of a spike earlier this week because of the Bank of Japan and talk about ending QE. But I was speaking earlier to the fact that specs are massively short gold, but they're also massively short treasuries. So I don't know. Eventually, in the next year or 2 or 3 years, I think yields will be higher, but we could see still a move lower in the near term. But I think the bottom in yields from July 2016, that's the bottom for now. It was around 135 in the 10-year, and right now we're almost at 3%. And if yields go down in the long end, we could see the curve flatten or invert. That would be a bad sign, of course, for the economy. Jim Butler, how fake is that GDP number for the USA? Hi, Jim. It's not that it's fake. The thing is that this GDP number is the first one to include the tax cut, and also it's before the trade war started. So how does the tax cut affect the GDP? Well, it's basically government financing it. The U.S. budget deficit now is almost 5% of GDP. So it's basically, it's a real number in that it's there, but it's basically based on debt. That's what it is. It's like, if you spend $100 a month, for example, and then every month, and then for some reason you go out there and you borrow another $10, it's going to look like you spent more, right? 110, but you took on debt. So that's why, yeah, it is real, but it's because of debt. One day that will have to, we'll have to pay the piper. But for now, it seems to be working. Mila Vanessa, YouTube notification on. It's 3 a.m. here. Greeting from Indonesia. Hi, nice to see you here from Indonesia. 3 a.m. Wow, you're up early. Flownet07, given the inflation in Venezuela, could I buy the oil industry of 5 ounces of gold? The thing is, Venezuela, there's probably a lot of capital controls. When countries go into hyperinflation, very difficult to come in and buy things, especially if you're a foreigner. So yeah, not really. El Tomo, thank you for the super chat donation. Too bad I can't buy The Economist now. Yeah, I mean, I bought it a couple of days ago. I don't buy it every week at all. I think I bought it twice this year, and I can't believe it's almost £6 now. Yeah, even before, I kind of woke up to things. I used to buy The Economist, and it's a bit boring, You just have to find the articles you like and read them, but there's a lot of stuff there that, I don't read. Central banks and governments want inflation, RR, because that's what they thrive on. Governments, their debts become worth less if you get inflation, and with inflation as well, they can spend more money on voters, buy more votes. But the general public don't realize that they're basically being screwed through inflation. Dwayne Hebink, hi from Gilbert, Arizona. Love listening to you almost every day. Oh, thanks, Gilbert. Dwayne, nice to see you here. Dane Robinson, what will happen to private debt if there's a reset? Could I pay my house with five Canadian maples? Usually, when there's a reset, the bankers make sure that the debt is also the debt is that they adjust the debt so that you actually won't be able to do that. So yeah, not necessarily, but who knows? I would say the best thing is try to pay off as much debt as possible. You might be able to pay it off with 5 maple leaves, but don't bank on it, I would say. Zalatiki, how likely the U.S. Dollar to go back to a gold standard? Well, it's highly likely because the Constitution is there, and the Constitution says that silver and gold should be money, and should be the only money. So it is possible. Our fiat will only go back to gold standard when people lose confidence in fiat currency. I agree, RR. The other thing as well is that most people want government to look after them, and the only way they can do it is through inflation. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people have bought into this philosophy of collectivism that government should look after themselves. So it doesn't mean to say that we have to think like that, right? Gesso, is there any way to arbitrage U.S. silver, well, in U.S. dollar silver in Venezuela? Well, I guess you might want to travel to Venezuela, maybe take some silver with you. But as I said earlier, when countries get in trouble like hyperinflation and economic collapse, there's a lot of capital controls, so it's difficult to do those things. Gur, OG, hi Gur. What is the topic for tonight? Well, I said earlier, it's just a informal Q&A. I'm just taking questions from you guys. Nothing in particular. Our gas 18% up, water 5.5% up. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of stuff go up here in the UK as well. British pound is dropping a lot as well. There's talk now. They're using Brexit as an excuse to say that we could have the government have to intervene, to use the army and the police to bring in supplies, and a lot of scaremongering. I think personally, Brexit is a scapegoat for the financial woes in the UK. I saw an article talking about how in 2017 was the first year since 1988 that the British spent more and invested more than they earned. So there's like there actually was a net decrease in wealth, and it was about 25 billion pounds. And the last time was in 1988 when there was a housing and credit boom, but it was only 300 million. So things are not great here either. Anonymous, how does someone get a job in finance nowadays, and why are some people in marketing paid so unbelievably much? I think finance, the jobs are going more to younger people and also to people with programming skills. As for marketing, I don't know. I've never really been into marketing. I remember when I worked in the city, I was more of a broker or salesperson, but marketing people, yeah, they didn't, they earned well, but not as much as, for example, I could earn if I had a good year, if I did a lot of business, right? But yeah, marketing people earn quite well. OM Ickiman, is that true? USA can't get hyperinflation because they export dollar to avoid hyperinflation. Is that true? Every time they, well, the reason there is demand for dollars is and the reason the U.S. has been able to print and borrow a lot of money and create money out of thin air is that the dollar is still the reserve currency, and because of custom, people even outside the United States want to deal in dollars. So the demand for the dollar keeps it from hyperinflating, but that doesn't mean it will last forever. OM Ikeman. Monty 280. What will be the value of fiat money if we go cashless? Will metals be valued more? They could, because it will be the only way out, right? If you can't take paper cash out, at least you could try to buy some precious metals, unless they ban people from buying precious metals, which is possible. But then, well, that would be like, I don't know what to say about that. Q-Trap, what would the cost be of taking care of an elephant hiding from the government? What the hell? Stupid question there. YK, thank you for the super chat donation. 7/7, Brexit scaremongering is poor posture in EU deal. I think it's also trying to like water down Brexit to scare people. Danny Djokovic, people will notice when $20 doesn't get you a gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, and a dozen eggs. Yeah, I think it's getting, it's gradually getting there. I remember when I went to university in the States in the early 80s, mid 80s, a lot of my colleagues used to get a letter from their grandparents. They used to get $20 bill, and that was quite a lot of money then. But now I think you can't really get much for $20. I was talking about how 10, 15 years ago, The Economist magazine used to be like £2, maybe $3 at the most, and now it's $5.99. I mean, and it's gotten thinner. There's less content in there. So the price has doubled and the size of the magazine has gone down in half. So that's inflation there. Arith, would you show us your gold collection? I think you have a lot of interesting coins in there, like the 20,000 race. Oh yeah, I'll show you that Brazilian coin from when Brazil was actually, let's see if I can find it. I couldn't find the Brazilian coin, but I've got a coin here. It's a 1812, 40 francs, and it's Kingdom of Italy. And Napoleon, believe it or not, was emperor of the northern Italy. It's 40 francs. So I think it's about 0.4 of an ounce of gold. And one of my favorite gold, it's not a coin, but it's a bar. It's a 50-gram Rothschild gold bar. It's quite rare, this one here. I could probably get a lot more than the price, the weight of, you can't get these too much, the Rothschild gold bar, because the Rothschilds, they used to own the mint that used to mint all the coins for the UK government, and they sold that off in 1968, the Royal Mint Refinery. So that gold bar is more than about 50 years old, and they stopped minting those. So Gur Olgi, Q says, trust the plan. He could just say, go to sleep. Finally, people are waking up. We have to trust the government. Give me a break. I agree with you, Gur. I don't trust any government. Just, I don't, not at all. But at the same time, let's hope something happens that's better for the individuals. But I think you have to look after yourself, be self-sufficient. Would going cashless hurt the economy? I think it will. Cash is still used for many purposes. I agree. I mean, in Europe, countries like Switzerland and Germany, people very rarely use debit cards or credit cards. I know it because I lived in Switzerland and I still have family there and I go there. Cash is very prevalent in Switzerland, for example. Chris Varga, Mario, have you noticed an increase in the number of properties for sale in the UK? I've been traveling a lot recently, and everywhere it looks like pretty dire. Yeah, I've heard that. I mean, around where I live, they seem to still be selling quite well, and I can't say that I've noticed an increase. Demonetized patron. Oh, hi, nice to see you here. I subscribed to your new channel. I promoted you in my last video, and I plan to promote you in more videos. Hopefully your subscriber count continues to go up. Thank you again for what you did for my channel. Oh, you're welcome. And thanks for trying to promote my channel. I appreciate that. Aspiradoras, how many coins have you got there? Not that many. It's just a little box here. Andre de la Fontaine, if the stock market crashed one stock at a time, then the broader market will not crash. Pretty clever. Well, the thing is that usually it doesn't work that way. You know, people see one stock going and, you know, everything goes. One thing I would say, like, it looks like the FANG stocks are having a bad time. So that could be like a signal, but who knows? Uh, there's a note saying that the markets can remain irrational for longer than you can remain solvent, right? And that bull markets and bear markets frustrate people. Yeah, that 1968, that's when the London gold pool failed, right? Coincidence? El Tomo Mario shuffling through his gold coins like my mother does with her buttons near her sewing kit. Ha ha ha. Napoleon gold coin and Rothschild gold bar. I would sleep with it if I was at least one day a year. Uh, Boreos. Do silver rounds have the same value as minted silver coins? Uh, Probably not. Not really sure, but the silver coins probably have a little more value because they've been minted. Silver rounds are more, they're not as elaborate, I would say, but they're still worth the ounce of silver. RR have to go. Thank you, Mario. Welcome. Anonymous, when I was younger, I used to wish I was Scrooge McDuck swimming in gold coins. DuckTales is a good show. I remember when I was young as well, I used to love the the comic books, Scrooge McDuck. In Brazil, we had that. It was, and I used to love that, and when he used to jump in his vault and swim in gold coins, it was my favorite. Yeah, it was my favorite comic, Scrooge McDuck. Over here, Mario, would you rather own Britannia than American Silver Eagles? How about Perth Mint coins? I've got Britannias and American Silver Eagles. I don't mind either ones. Perth Mint coins, I have some, not too many. Yeah, gold is antimicrobial too, and a healthy metal. Yeah, and also colloidal silver, right? Silver is good too. How old is the oldest Britannia coin you own? Well, I have a sovereign that's like from 1845. Britannia coins, I'm not sure. They're not that old. Scott Dickert, how do you think the normal person will discover the value of precious metals? The hard way. Monetary education is non-existent. Yeah, some of them will never discover it, unfortunately, or maybe they will the hard way. Why is gold priced in US dollars? Well, because after World War II, or just after, before the end, the Bretton Woods system was set up, and the United States had 2/3 of the gold in the world. And they designed the system, and the dollar became the reserve currency, and it was as good as gold, right? Other countries' central banks could go to the US central bank and demand payment in gold. For every $35, they could get an ounce of gold. And that's why it's priced in dollars. Even though here in the UK, if I go and buy gold coins or sell gold coins, they'll price it in sterling. But everyone around the world, a lot of times, looks at the dollar price. Paul Bear, do you think the stock market and bond market are topping out at the same time, and will they go down together? Uh, yeah, I mean the bond market, the yields have gone up quite a bit this year, and that's kept the stock market from making new highs, right, since January. So it could be, but the other thing that could happen, if the stock market for some reason comes off sharply, we could see bonds rebound the price and the yields go down. Britannia and sovereigns good for non-capital gains tax in UK. Yeah, that's right. They're legal tendered, so there's no capital gains. Guillaume Charles, Mario, would you explain what effects on international balance of payments gold would have if all countries are on gold standard? Yeah, the effect would be that there would be very little imbalance, because people, you're forced to pay off your debts when you're in a gold standard. You can't print the money to pay it off, right? And devalue. You can't print your money to buy dollars, devalue it, and cover your balance of payments, right? So yeah, it will bring discipline to the international balance of payments. You just have to look at the trade deficit in the US prior to 1971. It was always balanced. So I hope that answers your question. Ken S., thoughts on Bitcoin? Yeah, Bitcoin has rebounded recently. I think it's here to stay, and I think it could go higher. Difficult to say what price, but I'm still exposed to it and some other cryptos. Where could I buy the French franc gold coins? I bought it from a dealer in London. You just have to look around. They could be everywhere. These coins, not just like in France, for example. I went to a coin show in London a few years ago, and there was a French dealer there. I think that's how I bought mine, to a coin expo. Daryl Lowry, an increase of 100 basis points result in a 200 billion a year increase in debt service. Due to this, interest rates can never normalize. How will real estate investors be affected in global economic reset? Well, if interest rates keep rising, real estate investors will get hurt, because people won't be able to afford mortgages. I think the economic reset will probably drain a lot of liquidity out of the real estate market. So maybe there won't be much interest in real estate, and it will be very difficult to sell your property to get the cash. It will become very illiquid for a while, not forever, of course. Over here, what era of history do you find interesting and collect a precious metals coin because of your interest in that place and time? Uh, it vary. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I find all eras interesting, but I would say a lot of some of the coins I have are mostly from the last 200 years. I don't have coins that are that much older. I do have some like Roman silver coins, but very small. The little silver denarius. Inverted yield curve on bonds. Well, not yet, but they are becoming more and more. It's becoming more and more flat in the last year. They're almost the same, you know, if you look from 2 years to 30 year. How many people families are controlling the currency system? Well, who knows? Not many though. The Rothschilds, a lot of people, you know, mentioned the Rothschilds, and I mentioned them as well. But I think there are people there that are a lot more important than they are, people we don't even know about. Um, so yeah, a lot of some people mentioned the Black Nobility of Europe. Who knows? Over here, Mario, do you monitor the money velocity? Yeah, I've seen that it's the lowest in many, many decades. It's not moving around. It's not moving, is it? So that's not a good sign either. But when it starts moving, you could have a flood, and it could create inflation in real things. Right now, the money is staying in the financial assets. Right, it's not circulating. That's why you're not getting the velocity. Warning signs: hiding in the Alps. All the Swissies have guns and finances are okay. Uh, yeah, I mean, I've heard stories from people I know in Switzerland that there's a lot of mountains in Switzerland that are, you know, they have like cities in them. They've got so much wealth stored in Switzerland, and I think every Swiss man uh, has to go to the army from the age of 18. I'm not sure what they it used to be until you're probably 50. You had to go for about 2 weeks every year, and you keep your rifle at home. Yeah, so the Swiss, they have a good militia, and even in banking, a lot of the directors of the big Swiss banks, they're usually officers in the army. So you can't get ahead in business if you're not at the top in the army either in Switzerland. Zloty, why the West are not buying gold, same as the Russian and Chinese? Uh, Well, I think they are, but the powers that be are for themselves, but they don't want to buy it for the public, right? Because they're corrupt. If they started buying gold, that meant that they had to rein in the welfare state and their corrupt politics. Ian Cassie, who runs the City of London? Good question. I think the same people that run the banking system, really, whoever they are, you know, the families, big families behind the scenes. And they're not just necessarily in London, they could be in Europe as well, in the United States. Yeah, they're all pretty well, how can I say, disguised. It's amazing. Hi, GBS 63, nice to see you here. Anonymous Real Talk, the Black Nobility. Benjamin Fulford talks about allegedly some royal houses working out of Switzerland run the drug cartels. Yeah, and also the Black Nobility. I think it means like the old families from Italy, probably France, Germany, the UK, like the old nobility. A lot of people, I remember when I was younger, people said, "Oh, the aristocracy in Europe, you know, after World War II, they lost everything. They don't have that much wealth." But I don't think that's true. I think they're still very powerful, and they have a lot of land, uh, castles, vineyards, right? Crypto red pill. What do you think of Go Chain cryptocurrency? It's 100 times faster than Ethereum, and already 4 ICOs launched on the platform. I haven't looked at Go Chain. I'll have a look. Um, yeah, 100 times faster than Ethereum. That sounds fast. So you can write contracts on it, smart contracts. I have to have a look at it. Guillaume Charles, if Trump is able to reduce America's trade deficit, wouldn't that increase inflation rate in the U.S. as the dollars return? Yeah, and also that means that America would be buying more goods domestically, and usually it's more expensive to buy things in the U.S. than buying cheap Chinese goods. Vix's 911. Keep up the great work, Mario. Hello from Canada. Hi, Vix's. Thank you. Rob Lease, what do you think about Russia dumping all U.S. treasuries and rumors China is about to follow? Well, I listened actually to President Putin press conference this week at the BRICS summit. There was a BRICS summit, and a lady from Bloomberg, Moscow, asked her that question. And he said, yes, we have sold a lot of our treasuries, but he said that, you know, they're still going to continue to use the dollar. But it is a possibility because they only sold like about 80 billion. They still have a little bit left, and it caused quite a spike in yields. So if the Chinese were to follow suit, we could see a big spike in yields. But Putin was quite diplomatic. He didn't say, "Oh, we're going to dump the dollar. We're going to never use it again." He said the dollar is still very important, but he also emphasized that a lot of other currencies now are becoming important, the yuan included, and also the ruble. So that's what I have to say about that. Parlando, Bix Weir, a billion. Well, I don't think there's a billion. This Bix Weir story about the Grand Canyon. There, there was talk 1912 or something that there was a big gold discovery, but I think they tried to explore the gold there, but it was too expensive. But they never got any, a billion ounces of gold. That's total fabrication by Bix Weir. Norway have also been dumping treasuries. Yeah, I mean, the other thing that the U.S. is making it really kind of blackmailing people, other countries. If you don't do as we say, if you don't follow, our rules or our strategies, we're gonna put sanctions on you, right? So people are saying, F that. I'm gonna get rid of the dollars. Maybe use gold with other people. Start dealing in yuan. You can buy oil from in China with yuan and gold. The LME is going to start quoting base metals in yuan. So why be at the mercy of the United States when they're using the dollar as a political weapon? And that's too bad. SRS Rocco debunked Bix Rio Grande Canyon story. Yeah, I read that as well. That's yeah, it's nowhere close to $1 billion, and you need to find that gold in the first place and take it out of the ground. Russia dumped their treasuries, and now Trumpty Dumpty needs a meeting. Aesop's hair. Hope you're enjoying the cooler weather. Yeah, it's much nicer. It was really hot here the last few days. It's cooled down. It's been raining a bit. It's been quite windy, but it's much better. TNT TV, big week ahead also. The earth starting to shake here in Oregon. Couple of quakes close by. Interesting. Vance V, Alaska is where the gold is. Yeah, there is a lot of gold in Alaska and also in the Yukon. Yeah, platinum is quite oversold. I have to say I don't follow it too closely. Aaron Nightingale, do you think Cboe Bitcoin ETF will get declined? I saw an article this week that apparently for now it hasn't been given the go ahead. So who knows? But it looks like the G20 met this weekend, and they said, they didn't make any comments or give any directives for Bitcoin. So that kind of helps. Food will be the new gold with all the floods and fires. Yeah, the video I made today about Venezuela as well. People are using eggs in Venezuela to trade, to exchange things, because the eggs keep their value more than the currency, right? Yeah, the UK property market. I mean, I haven't heard of the 18-year cycle, but the UK economy definitely is too dependent on the property market. It's funny you should talk about that because I have a friend. He's always he's done really well in the city. He's quite wealthy, but he's always rented for the last almost 25 years. He never, pulled the trigger. But I just spoke to him a few days ago, and he told me he's finally bought a property. So could that be a contrarian indicator? I hope not for him because he's a good friend, but who knows? Everybody in America should have at least 3 hens per family. Yeah, we don't have any hens. I have a friend close friend here in London who has some. Guillaume Charles, Mario, how much penetration by the blockchain and cryptos in our lives in 5 years' time? Well, I think it will probably be a lot more diffused than now. I think there will be a lot, the general public will be a lot more aware. Right now, not that much, but difficult to say how much, but it will definitely be more. I've already seen on television, even though I don't watch too much television, there are even advertisements, adverts about blockchain, which is quite, I was surprised to see. Zant Memail, what will likely trigger the next crisis and approximately when? Well, I can't say approximately when. I think it will be the credit market because the whole world economy is based on a lot of credit and very little cash. Anonymous, what is the best thing for a foreigner to invest in Venezuela? And aren't there a lot of scary cults, Satanists in the UK, like Hempstead cover up rumors or Jimmy Savile? Uh, I think there's a lot of Satanists everywhere. It's not just in the UK. Foreigners to invest in Venezuela. I mean, I wouldn't invest there right now. But if I lived there, if I moved there, I guess would I want to move there? Apparently now even property is really expensive there. The stock market is also elevated. Um, it's not a good place to be. Susan Chappell, what are your thoughts on a civil war in the U.S.? Well, I think it's already happening, the civil war, but it's a quiet war. It's between, factions within the deep state. It's not like the Civil War in 1861 to 1865, but I think it's like a Cold War, basically, left and right now, the deep state. And it's not a good thing. Warning signs, get off all the medications. Yeah, I don't take any medications, so yeah. Mila Vanessa, yeah, I think every country wants a weak currency, and that's the problem with currency wars. It's always, yeah, it doesn't stop because everyone's competing to devalue their currencies. That's why eventually they'll have to devalue against the gold and silver, which are the only currencies that are neutral, right? That would be the only way. But yeah, Trump says now the dollar's too strong, and then if the dollar goes down, the ECB will say the euro is too strong, and vice versa. Daryl Lowry, yeah, Facebook and Twitter, they've declined a lot. Yeah, um, I think these FANG stocks, they're heavily owned by hedge funds and investors. I think it's a bubble, so it could be the beginning. We'll have to see. They're still way overvalued. I look at a chart of Facebook; it's still really high, the price. Aesop's hair. Do you think? Thank you, Zen Memail, for the super chat donation. Uh, Aesop's hair. Do you think that stated weak productivity is possibly a consequence of government overstating GDP figures? Well, I think all this talk about productivity is just a distraction. Uh, the reason why people aren't earning as much and producing, being productive is because there's so much rules and regulation, so much taxation, and employers can't really pay their workers that well. And that's what it's all about, the productivity. But the mainstream economists and politicians, they just seem to talk about it as if it's a problem, but they don't look at the root cause, right? Susan Chappell, I'm British, Mara, and I have lived in the States for 20 years. In your opinion, when it all goes down, is Britain safer? Um, I would say so, actually. It might sound, might not make sense, but I think Britain is more used to instability and the economy failing. The last time it happened here was in the 70s. You know, the British went through World War II. There's a lot of rationing, so they're more conditioned to accept it. Americans, not so much. So yeah, I would say Britain would be safer. Gur OGs, Russia is the safest place. Um, you know, a few years ago, I would have laughed at that comment, but more and more, you know, from I know I haven't been there, and I know you can't really tell from watching on television. But during the World Cup, it looked very nice. I'm thinking of going to visit. I've got a Brazilian passport. I don't need a visa to go to Russia. So yeah, maybe I should go visit. Have you visited, Gur? Um, Let me know. Data pirate. Nope. UK is doomed. Well, I don't know. We'll see. The question wasn't whether the UK was doomed, because I think it is whether it would be really bad here, where if it would be safer here in the US. But if everything implodes, I would rather be here than in the US, because in the US, there's a lot of people with guns, right? I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but people would be very angry. And the US has had it too well for too long. I think the last big crisis in the US, I would say you'd have to go back to the Civil War. In the UK, you go back 40 years, right? Gur OG, he's been to Murmansk many times. Yeah. My wife and I were thinking of maybe going once to St. Petersburg. It looks like a beautiful city. Daryl Lowry, Russia has a secret weapon. It's called a balanced budget. Yeah, and the other thing as well is their debt to GDP is very low. I think it's like 20 to 30%. They don't have that much debt at all. All right, I'll take another two or three questions, and then I'm going to call it a night. Let's see. Mario, we need guns to protect ourselves here in the US for when the coming implosion strikes. Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I think, and that's not a bad thing, but I think there's going to be, you know, from watching all the, like the hurricanes, years ago in New Orleans, you know, all the looting that happened. I would feel probably safer in the UK. Probably not in the inner cities in London, but outside in the countryside, I think it will be fairly safe. Philosopher Bees, is California separating from the Union? No, I don't think so. I think there was a vote the other day on whether to split California into three, and I think that didn't go through. Anonymous, is there a way to short sell property? Uh, well, yeah, if you buy, if they did that, you know, in the before the '08 crisis, they bought credit. They bought credit default swaps on mortgage-backed securities. That's the way to do it. But you'd need a lot of money to call Goldman Sachs or J.P. Morgan to do it. Derivatives. Dr. David Jander, there's no rule of law. Yeah, I agree. I mean, um, unfortunately. So just another question, and then I'm going to go. Anyone want to ask a question? Ready to answer. I'd like to thank beforehand everyone for everyone that showed up for the live stream. I enjoyed it today. Huh. Let's see. Oscar Baldwin, do you miss having hair? Well, hasn't really affected me, but I still have a bit. Is real estate gonna crash? I think it will eventually. It's not sustainable the way it is. So there we go. Billy's just woken up to say goodbye to everyone. No, I'd like to thank everyone that showed up and participated, all the super chat donations. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of little of the weekend that we have. And I'll speak to you later on in the week. Take care. Thank you and bye.